Hello, and today we'll be playing Lyre. We're going to start chapter 11 now. I've avoided sleep for the past few days, or rather, sleep has been avoiding me. No matter how much I yearn or how hard I try, it always seems just out of reach. The tender feeling of resting my body into the warm embrace of unconsciousness feels like a distant memory. Hope turns to sand falling between my fingers, and my determination is like the flame of a candle. I can't let it go out, though. I feel it's the only thing I have left of myself. It feels like it's been ages since I've closed my eyes. My eyelids feel like dry leather, and the eyes beneath them burn with a searing pain. Reality feels like a blur. It's a familiar feeling to when I wake up from a strange dream. It takes a moment to process everything around me. Even without any sleep, I still dream. My eyes are open and I'm wide awake, but I still dream. I dream of Lyre stripped of his armor and thrown before the steps of the throne. His scar over his eye bleeds, dripping blood onto the branches of the throne. Each drop sprouts a flower, blooming a beautiful crimson color. When the blood is spent, the flowers wilt. With that, a knife slides between my ribs. I dream of Liz clad in the armor of an angel. She rides a bear, eyes black as night and fur matted with blood. Her gaze is cold and conflicting. Again, lightning strikes outside the window as my whack of antlers whip through the drapes. I then dream of Raynor. He stands before a window, left antler made of gold, his towering figure bathed in red light from the flames below. A long slender sword falls from his hand, clattering on the floor. Cold steel drags across my throat. My dreams have slowly begun to merge with my visions. Like the mind's eye, they all swirl into a spiral, mixing together like a whirlpool, dragging me down deeper and deeper into the chasm of the past. The visions mock me as I seek out answers. I'm too stubborn to realize that I'm already out of time, I suppose. The day of the trial has arrived, and I'm still no closer than I was 9 days ago. I can't help but wonder if I would be closer had I not tried to rush things. Dwelling on it won't do me any good, though. I'm sorry, Tegan. There's a long silence, followed by a ringing in my ears. At first, I think they're just not going to respond, but after a few moments, they let out a reply. Don't. They're muffled, almost like they're talking into a pillow. Tegan, are you even there? Another long moment of silence before they respond, this time a bit more clear. Yes, I'm still here, but not for long. I can hear an uneasy tone in their voice as the words catch in their throat. What do you mean? The trial is today. This time their tone's a bit more stern. It's our connection. It's growing weaker by the day. Our connection? Think back to when they were first beginning to reach me. It seems like forever ago, but in reality it's only been a few weeks. Their voice was so muffled and sometimes I barely noticed them. Why is our connection weak? Will it get better? Tegan takes a deep breath and answers. They sound like they're on the other side of a door. It's not your fault at all. The fault lies entirely with me. The reason our connection is growing weak is because I've been pushing you. I wanted to make sure that you would have enough time to train, but I also wanted you to play it safe. And I realize that I've only made things worse. Don't say that. I can feel that I'm getting close. In just a few more tries, I'm sure I'll be able to figure out all this. I try to put out an optimistic attitude, but it comes off more as false hope. I'm sure they can sense that. You don't need to reassure me. If one thing is true, it's the fact that I failed you. Nobody has ever trained as hard and fast as you have. You have more potential than I ever imagined. My power is simply not what it used to be. It wasn't enough. I stand up and walk over to the window, resting my arms on the cold stone in the opening. What do you mean by that? If anything, you're giving me a chance. It's something I have to admit. Even with all of the rules and restrictions put on their power and all of the knowledge they have to keep to themselves, they've only been trying to help me. I also can't help but remember that this relationship goes both ways. They're helping me so I can do their bidding. I can't help but wonder, why me? I know I wasn't exactly chosen, but it feels odd that all this would start to happen the moment I end up in this position. Of course, it doesn't even only mean that I'm limited in my ability, but it's because of a sacrifice I had to make. Sacrificing what? I think back to Avatar, the monkey from the vision I had, and I feel a lump form in my throat. Nothing like that, I assure you. They read into my mind again. I'm a bit used to it by now, but not entirely numb to the feeling. Then again, the thought of them sacrificing Alberton was almost as intrusive as Tegan is. My powers were once beyond your comprehension. I was on a similar standing with the higher gods. Their voice wavers as it's like listening to them while my ears are clogged with water. We are all creators in our own right, controlling laws and ideas, helping the world turn. It sounds less interactive than the role I play now. I understand, but the power is immense. However, it was nothing without control. Like a farm, crops can grow and animals can breed, but it will always need a farmer, someone to control and guide. I was the first of the gods to realize this. Hearing them speak of the higher gods caused me to feel a bit sick. Trying to understand it all is a bit easier as time goes on, but the overwhelming feeling of it never really goes away. This sacrifice that they mention also doesn't leave my mind. This sacrifice you made, does it have anything to do with Alberton? It was for Alberton. I sacrificed my power for Alberton in the world he knew. The state of the world was heading down a path of decay, and I knew I had to do something. I brought it to the attention of my fellow gods. They were quite content with seeing things play out, knowing that they could always start over. I, however, was not willing to settle for such an outcome. I hear a distant rumbling sound, and I cannot determine if it's coming from within my head or somewhere outside. I propose giving up most of my power and freedom in order to give the world a second chance. With this trade, I would be allowed an avatar, a mortal vessel, which I would be able to use as an emissary of sorts. They would be able to understand past mistakes and pave a path for a brighter future. They would act as a guide for the world, and I would act as a guide for them. Thank you for answering my questions, but why are you telling me about all these other things? I tell you this because it is relevant. Is there any way I can stop our connection from growing weaker? Can you do anything about it? Yes. That sacrifice I made for Alberton. I'm going to make a similar sacrifice for you. What? Don't think too much about it. The woman that binds us is weakening, and I need to take action. You've done your part to get us out of this situation, so allow me to do mine. What are you going to do? What are you talking about? So it's going to come down here for me any minute now. I need you. Don't worry. I'm just going to consult with the higher gods. Their voice becomes more and more distant, and I can't help but feel like I'm losing a part of myself. If everything goes the way I plan, you'll come out of this with your head still on your shoulders. I will be back. Please take care and trust in me. I step away from the window, eyes looking up into the air as if they were standing right there. You have to believe me when I tell you that everything will turn out okay. No, even if it seems like it won't, you have to have faith. Their voice trails off with each word. You don't have to do this. I'm close, I can't. Tigran, there is a response. For the first time in weeks, my mind feels empty. I clumsily sit down on the cold slab of stone. The silence is almost numbing. It's like a weight was lifted off of my chest, but something inside me was taken along with it. Tigran? I still receive no response. This can't be happening. No, no, no. Please tell me this isn't happening. It's not even the fact that they're gone. As abrupt as it was, I know they'll be back. They said they would. The problem that circles my mind now is that they're about to do something drastic. How is this going to affect things? Can I still even use my powers? Before I can even feel like closing my eyes, my consciousness jumps from one point to another, and a slight feeling of relief washes over me. It does nothing to quell the anxiety, though. The colorful walls of the chasm dance by as I stand there in the midst of it all. Winds of simmering dust fly by at a speed similar to when I first arrived here, only reminding me of just how stressed I truly am. Tigran, I call their name, yelling out into the tunnel, but I get no sign of a response. The winds only pick up slightly, and the echoing voices of the past flow by, sending chills through my body. I start to feel more and more aggravated as the situation settles in. If you can hear me, please come back. You don't need to take such drastic measures. Even if you do, we can talk about it more here, right? I get no response. The anger swells more and more inside of me. It was a frustration have finally reached their boiling point. You stupid God. Why can't you just tell me these things? Between your bot's plan to form our world and other gods' desire to watch it burn, I've had it up to here with everyone's shit. The wind picks up, but I stand firmly in place. If you want me to shoulder everyone's burdens, including yours, then just tell me. I turn around, looking up and down the tunnel, trying to see if I can get any reactions from anyone. Nothing happens. Damn it all. I lean forward in my seated position, lowering my head down between my legs. I'm still able to use my power, right? Ty never said anything about me losing that, even so I don't think I have enough stamina. Any sense of a weight being lifted off of my shoulders is now gone, and a numbing feeling of dread creeps down my neck. I squint my eyes, trying to concentrate on the vision in my mind. That night, I need to know who did it. Just a hint, any hint that can give me a chance. Damn it, the vision comes across even messier this time, only granting me a slight visual. Everything's falling apart before my eyes. Each time I try to have a vision, it's like looking in a mirror before something shatters it. Every time I get so much as a glimpse, the vision collapses and I'm thrown back into reality. Controlling what I want has gotten easier, but seeing it has become more and more difficult with each day that passes. I lay down in bed, trying to relax my body on the cold stone surface. A wave of exhaustion begins to overwhelm me. Laying there, staring at the ceiling, I contemplate falling asleep. Someone will be down here sometime today to drag me out of the cell. I don't know when, though, so I might as well try to rest. I'm going to need as much energy as possible. For the past few days, all I've been doing is dwelling on the past, reaching out for a vision so close yet so far away at the same time. For the first time in several days, I actually feel tired. Is it because Tigran's gone? Now, I don't think that's the reason. They're not responsible for my stupid decisions. My strategy failed me. That's all there is to it. I haven't done anything. I haven't changed a bit. All the power I have, and all I can do, is sit idly by. My eyes jolt open as the sound of metal clanking together brings me out of my sleep. I sit up and look over to the doorway where I see a turnkey trying to open it. A feeling of dread washes over me. How long was I asleep for? I glance out the window and see that the sun is higher in the sky. It's most likely close to noon at this point. I had only been asleep for a short while. The cold air from the window whilst onto my body as I wonder how I was able to sleep at all. I get up and move over to the other side of the cell. There's two turnkeys standing by the door. One of them is wrestling with a lock on the door while the other stands next to them, holding some cloth shoes and a bucket with hot steam rising from the top. The first one is muttering some swears under his breath while the other stands there silently, looking down the ground. Behind them stands a castle guard. He's lynx, clad in basic armor with a large green cloth draped around his neck and shoulders. The turnkey unlocks the door and it swings open, banging into the wall behind it. I don't really know what to do, so I just stand there, backed against the wall, looking at them. I'm still barely clothed, only wearing the pants from the ball. They're scuffed and stained with mud, looking more like a rusty brown compared to the midnight black they were on that night. I look closer and realize that the bundle of cloth the turnkey is carrying looks like a pair of neatly folded clothes. Knowing that they're going to give me some clothes is a bit of a good feeling. I hate to be tossed before the throne as a dirty man in rags. Better to be a dirty man in clean clothes. However, the bucket of water might be to clean myself. They step into the cell. The first turnkey stepped off to the side, while the second one walks in, setting the clothes down. Stand still. He says this in a raspy voice, which travels out from under his hood like a growl in a bear cave. At first, I don't understand what they intend. Then I watch the silent turnkey brings back the bucket and begins to heave it forward. Wait! I barely have any time to protest, let alone dodge as the hot water leaks through the air onto me. The next shock is horrific as the heat surges over my body. Some of it gets in my mouth and it tastes salty. I throw myself back a bit, backing against the wall and blinking my eyes. Why would you do that? Neither of them respond. After a few seconds, the feeling of pain goes away, and soon I'm just standing there, dripping from head to toe with warm water. I'm far from being warm myself, though, as the cold breeze rushes in through the window, blowing onto my skin and sending goosebumps all over my exposed arms. Turn around. I look up and the other turnkey is being handed a second bucket by the guard. I turn around. Reluctantly turning around, my body feels stiff and I tilt my head downwards, clenching the muscles in my neck, bracing for the impact of hot water on my back. It only takes a moment for the stinging wave of water to be thrown on me, trickling down my back and soaking my pants. A muddy puddle has formed on the ground around my feet. I don't really feel clean. The guard nods to the silent turnkey and they walk forward, picking up the clothes and setting them on the bed. Those will be sitting on the bed for you once you're ready. Okay? The turnkeys walk up to me and pulls a rough-looking sponge from the bucket. Before I can question them, they press it into my side, begin to sloppily scrub away at my skin. What? What are you doing? Stop! They pull back and look at the guard. He frowns and looks at me. They need to clean you before you present yourself to the king. As the guards say this, the turnkey picks up where they left off and continues to scrub. This is ridiculous. I'm not a pig being prepared for slaughter. I grab the sponge from their paw rather easily and throw it in the bucket. A small bit of water left in the bucket flies into the air, splashing on the ground in front of the guard's shoes. I'm perfectly capable of washing myself. I say this while glaring at them. He steps forward and reaches into the bucket, pulling the sponge from the bottom. Rising back up, he shoves it into my chest with a bare force, gritting his teeth as I'm batted into the corner. They're going to do their job. You're going to be quiet. Then when they're done, we're going to escort you to the trial. They push harder on my chest, the metal on their gloves digging in my skin. Or I could bring you there now, naked and shivering, like the pathetic worm you are. His words escape him as his attention is drawn to the hallway, or the rhythmic sound of steel clanking together travels up the hall, getting closer with each thud. Bjorn, I imagine the large bear trudging his way down the hall. I can feel my heart beating in my chest as the guard's fist presses me against the wall. When he was standing in the doorway, I didn't realize how big he was. Lately, I've only been visited by people either about my height or much smaller than me. I grab his arm and push him off of me with what little strength I have. Get off! He actually managed to make him stumble back before attention on the hallway. That snaps him out of it, however, as he pushed me harder into the wall, letting out a snarl. The person walking down the damp corridor now sounds like they're just a few cells down. It can't be Bjorn. Whoever it is, their footsteps are swift and quick. They actually seem to pick up in pace too. Maybe they'll stop this. My legs are shaking a bit as I stand there, pushed against the gritty wall of the cell. The two turnkeys stand off to the side of us, their paws clasped and their heads drooping. The repetitive noise of feet on dirty ground comes to a stop in the doorway. No! He slides through the entrance, his tail stiff and shoulders high. He's wearing a helmet shaped to the head of a wolf, with a large plume coming out the top. I recall seeing sitting on armor rack in his room. Even in my dreams, it would rest there, collecting dust. Out! The two turnkeys walked to the door, one of them handing the ring of keys to Lyre. But I was just, leave now! I slide down the wall and falling into a seated position, legs shaking slightly. Seeing him and hearing his voice is the biggest relief I've had in weeks. The castle guard walks to the doorway and stops next to Leon. Not even allowed down here, if I remember correctly. I can't read the expression on his face through the helmet, but Leon only turns his head slightly, looking down the links. As a person who made the arrest, it's my duty to bring them to trial. If you have a problem with that, bring it up with your commander. I'm sure he'd love for you to waste his time with such questions. The guard clenches his fist and scoffs. You'll be needing these then. The guard dropped a pair of shackles into Leo's palm. Leo leans in, his voice brought down to a quiet tone. Oh, and if I ever catch you pushing around prisoners again, I'll make sure your commander has you shoveling shit in the stables for weeks. Understood. After that, the guard walks off in a huff. Leo turns his head away from the door and looks down at me. As I hear the guard's footsteps trail off into the distance, I find it hard to get any words out of my mouth. For a few moments, we both just stayed in place, motionless. The only thing moving is Leo's tail as it twitches from side to side. I apologize for the smell. What's with the helmet? Suddenly, he launches himself toward me, throwing the shackles to the side and falling to his knees. He takes me in his arms, wrapping them around me tightly. His body gives off a comforting warmth, and there's even a faint smell of coconut. I just sit there and let him hug me, my body inside. After a few seconds, I hug him back, his fur rubbing against my face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I can feel him shaking slightly, and I even hear him sniffle. What are you apologizing for? You better not be apologizing on behalf of that moody king. The shaking continues, but he quickly starts to laugh. I miss you, Victor. It's only been a couple of weeks, but it feels like ages. All I could do every day was wonder how you were getting by. You were constantly on my mind. He pulls back, planting his paws on my shoulders and looking down at me through his helmet. I could sort of see his eyes behind the visor, big and concerned. I looked down, several emotions overwhelming me all at once. Embarrassment, happiness, sadness. I can tell that I'm blushing without even looking in the mirror. My face feels hot and the rest of my body is chilly. The water from that bucket bath drips from the tips of my hair onto the ground. I look back up at Lyre, and he's still letting out nervous chuckles. I like your hair. You look kind of cool with it down like that. Even through his helmet, I can tell he's forcing a smile. Before I know it, tears begin running down my cheeks. It feels good, though. He takes me in his arms again, and we both silently sit there hugging. I sob into his chest for what seems like a few minutes. The thing that messes with me the most is the fact that I'm just now realizing how much I miss him. I see him in my dreams and some visions, but through it all, most of the time he felt like he was just there. Any emotions I would get were just drowned in other feelings and thoughts. Holding him in my arms helps quell my thoughts. Having him here by my side is just pure bliss. After a couple more minutes, I pull away and look up at him. I miss you so much, Leo. He lowers his head. I really did never stop thinking about you, not for a moment. He leans back in his seated position, his tail swishing across the floor like a broom. I raise up my hands and grasp the sides of his helmet. Are they making you wear this for the special occasion? No, all the royal guards have to wear these actually. Only on certain occasions, though. He wings his paw nervously and I brush my hand through the fur on his neck. Can you let me take it off? I want to see your handsome face. I begin to lift the helmet, and he quickly brings his paws up to my hands to stop them. His paws stay there for a moment, and he lets out a sigh. I lower my hands, and he removes his helmet. What I see next makes my stomach twist into knots. He has a black eye. It's swollen to a point where he can barely open it. Oh my God. I take his face in my palm and caress it. I'm afraid my dedication to both the sword and the arts has left my bottling in both. I gently rub my hand across his face, making sure not to cause him any pain. I start to get angry, knowing that this is all probably because of me. That's nonsense. Everyone said you're a gifted swordsman. What actually happened? You'll learn about it during the trial. Did you get into a fight with someone? Did someone attack you? He lowers his head and says, all you need to know is that it was Bjorn and that he's in worse shape than I am. Bjorn attacked you and you won? He doesn't lift his head, still looking down at his lap. Not really. I lost a duel. That doesn't make much sense. I'm confused. Why would Bjorn be in worse shape? He was out for blood. I didn't want either of us to die, so... He pauses, the words catching in his throat. I don't really want to talk about it if that's okay. The fight itself wasn't too important. I'm about to protest when an all too familiar noise echoes from outside the window. The bell starts to toll, the noise bouncing off of the walls outside and filling the cell with a reverberating noise. I look back up at Leo, and he's staring out the window too. He seems nervous, almost frozen in place, and I don't blame him. It's finally begun. I'll tell you all about it later, after we prove your innocence. He stands up from his seated position and holds out his palm. It will be better if you arrive as soon as possible. I take his paw and he pulls me to my feet. You're right. I look down my body, filthy and dripping with water, the seat of my pants covered with mud. Pick up the sponge and bucket, I turn to Leo, who's examining his helmet. It was all right. I just need a few minutes to, Oh, yeah. I'll be out in the hall if you need me. Okay? After a few minutes, I managed to get myself relatively clean. The sponsor actually does a good job at getting most of the dirt and everything else off of my body. It's not a perfect bath, but it actually feels really good aside from the shivers running up and down my skin. Also, once all the water is used up, I turned the bucket over and stood on top so I could wash my feet. However, I should have placed it closer to the bed with the clothes. No, yeah. He appears at the doorway, his eyes darting up to mine after glancing down my exposed genitals. Can you hand me those clothes on the bed? I don't want to get my feet dirty walking over there. Without saying anything, he quickly walks over to the stone slab and hands me the cloth from the underwear. While he does this, it looks like he's avoiding looking at my body. I take the underwear and start tying it around my waist. You don't have to avert your gaze. Am I really that grubby looking? No, it's not that you're grubby. I'm just trying to be polite. I love looking at your body. He starts halfway through his statement. We both stand there in silence for a moment. I know you do. I fasten the underwear around my bits, and he turns away in his flustered state. He eventually does look back at me, and I even see him softly smile. I see the undergarments fastened around my waist neatly, but when I look up at him, he keeps his eyes trained on my torso. After a second, his gaze rises back up to mine. Pants. I point to a simple pair of pants sitting on the bed. Sorry. He grabs a pair of trousers and hands them to me. I slip into them pretty fast, and then he hands me the shirt. I put that on pretty quickly too. The sleeves are short and it feels a bit tight. He now tosses me a pair of socks. I slip them onto my feet. Leaning against him for support, I step off of the bucket and into the old pair of shoes. They don't fit me too well, a bit too big actually. I can walk in them though, and even so, I don't think I'll be doing too much walking anyways. What about the jacket? I look behind him and the jacket that he's nodding towards. It's the one I wore that night, damp and hanging from the bars of the cell door. Will the throne room be cold? Not really. I'll still be fine then. Stopping the doorway, I turn around to look at him. He's standing in the center of the cell, helmet in one hand and shackles in the other. I look down at them and realize that for a moment I have forgotten about everything. Only for a moment. He locks eyes with me and then looks around the cell once more. Now, he stares at the bed, the cold slab of stone with one cover draped in a ratty blanket in the other corner draped with my wet clothes from earlier. After a few seconds, he walks up to me and holds out the shackles. I hate to do this, but it's okay, just do it. He pauses for a moment before nervously clasping them around my wrists. They clink slightly as his paws lock them in place. I'm going to make whoever killed Raynor pay for what they've done. You mean we, right? He looks into my eyes, a sad smile gracing his lips. Of course. He takes my hands in his paws and rolls his thumbs over my palms. For some reason, I can tell that he wants to cry. It's just a feeling that I get from his paws. Now, he squeezes my hand slightly and looks up. Yes, if things go well, there's something I would like to talk with you about. Of course, even if everything goes horribly and I get sentenced to life in the dungeons or worse, I want you to visit me here so I can talk with you. Promise me you will. Without hesitation, he closes my hands together in between his paws and clasps them tightly. The chains linking my arms together rattle as he does this. I promise. Once again, the bells outside begin to ring. Loudly leads me to the doorway and turns around. You go on ahead while I lock the cell door. Okay? I hesitantly take a couple of steps forward before walking down the long tunnel. As I walk, the feeling of comfort ahead while with Lyre starts to fade away. Then I remember why I'm here and what's going to happen. Amazingly, being around Lyre made the emotional part of my brain forget about all of it. But now, but now all comes crashing down upon me like a roof collapsing. My heart feels like it fell from my chest and hit the floor. I try to pick myself up mentally and continue to walk forward. That's all I can really do at this point. I just have to try and get through this. I try to make my mind off. I try to take my mind off of it by looking around. I've never actually gotten to see most of the hall leading to my cell. I pass the first two cells and take a peek inside of them. They both look similar to each other, but they're definitely different compared to the one I was put in. They each have a window with bars on it, and both cells are very small, at least half the size of my own. There's also no bed or anything else for that matter. Each cell is completely empty aside from the shackles hanging from the brick wall. I hear Leo's footsteps approaching from behind me. I really did put you in a good cell, you know? I wish you didn't have to put me in a cell at all. Me too. We continued walking, his helmet underneath his arm as his other arm is draped over my back, his paw rubbing my shoulder. The chains hanging from my wrist click together lightly with each step as we make our way up the stairs. How many dungeons are there? Most people only know about the first two levels. You were placed on the first level. It's a series of cells that were built as part of the castle's foundation. That's why each of them has a window? Yes, well, some of them do. We're now in the main part of the castle. It's honestly a breath of fresh air. We passed a few people going about their business. They don't pay us any mind, aside from the few that stare at us as we pass. When the castle was being built, they were actually being used as rooms for the workers, although they weren't locked in them like you were. They were basically used like barracks. The plans for them to be the dungeons had been decided in the initial schematics. We come across a fork in the hallway, but instead of going down the corridor that leads to the throne room, we turn left. The voices of people ahead start to fade away as we pace down the other hall. This is a throne room that way. We won't be going through the main entrance. Well, that's actually a relief. I prefer not to be sneered at walking up the aisle. Anyways, what about the second? The second level is meant for a more permanent stay. It's underneath the castle's foundation, embedded deep within the cliffside. The heat from the hot spring can really be felt down there, and you never see the light of day. You don't want to be put down there, and honestly, I'll do anything in my power to stop that from happening. It's horrible down there. Hearing all of this causes goosebumps to form on my arms. Thankfully, they don't get used often. Are there more levels? He doesn't answer right away, not until we turn down a very narrow hall. There's two castle guards standing by a door at the end of the hall. They're both cats, out of earshot and talking with each other. There's one more level, but it hasn't been used in ages, and it definitely won't be used for you. We get closer to the end of the hall, and he stops and takes his arm off my shoulder, turning to me. Okay, the trial will be starting soon, so I just want to go over everything with you. I'm sure you've been thinking about it as long as you've been in those cells, so you're more than prepared somewhat. But I think we should still go over some of it, okay? There will be a jury consisting of high nobility. You may recognize some of them from that dreaded party. Hey, you got to dance with Captain Lyre Weed of the Royal Guard. Was it really all bad? I threw a look at him in a deadpan manner. I'm only kidding, I know. Trust me, I wish I could block out all the bad stuff from that night. Me too. Anyways, there's going to be 7 people in this jury, including Elizabeth. After everything is said and done, they will give their verdicts. Once all of the votes have been read, the king will give his verdict, and his word is final. Very rarely does it differ from what the jury believes, though. Even if they all voted me innocent, I doubt Aegis would agree. You never know. We'll just have to see. Honestly, I don't know what he'll decide. What else do you know for sure? He thinks for a moment, fiddling with the plume on his helmet. Each person, each person even remotely involved in what happened will testify. They will either testify against you or for you, or they may even do both, depending on the information they give. Very different from how it's done in Erwin. I'll be going first since I made the arrest. Also, another thing in our favor is the fact that Bjorn is currently unable to testify. He reaches around and grips the handle of his sword confidently. Adris isn't too keen on delaying the trial. He will testify his place. Instead, Fan will testify in place of him, detailing the events and how he saw them. Ben is a good man and he'll most definitely tell the truth. They will also have your account of what happened along with mine. As long as there's no contradictions, the jury will accept it. That could either be good or bad for me, depending on what Fan saw. Yes, like usual, everything seems a bit unfortunate. Yes, that seems to be an ongoing theme. Is there anything else you might be able to tell me? That's all I really know. I'm also not sure what the punishment will be. I can think of a few things. He lets out a sigh, his breath tumultuously exiting his lungs. No, you know more than I do what happens to people guilty of such crimes. No, I won't let it happen. I reach up and take his face in my hands. Yes, he will. No, I'll never. No, listen to me. You're going to do everything in your power to prove my innocence, and I'll do the same. And if it's all for naught, and I'll throw in a cell, we'll continue to fight the odds. But if the worst happens, you're to do nothing. I can't stand the thought of roping you into a punishment you don't deserve. You don't deserve it either. I can feel my eyes beginning to water. That's not the point. I say this in a hushed whisper. Testifying for me is already putting you in a dangerous spot. I don't want you dying on my behalf. Tears begin to form at the corners of his eyes as he looks down at the ground. His breathing is heavy and his tail is tucked between his legs. Let's contemplate the horrible scenario where I'm sentenced to death. You're going to do nothing to stop it from happening. My eyes are welling with tears and my heart is racing. I can feel a headache coming in. Afterwards, you will mourn and weep, as I know you will, because you are good and kind. When the mourning is done, you will move on. You'll find someone else who will love and treasure you as I do. And I know you'll try to make things work, because that's what you've done since the moment I met you. It'll be reasonable, but it won't make things better. I'll be loyal to you until the day I die. Would that be the same loyalty as what you've sown this kingdom? Your loyalty to Lyre has tied you down and made you its prisoner. You are a knight, a servant. I will not have you make the same pledge to me. His breathing relaxes and I can tell he's thinking of a way to reply. The bells also begin to ring again. I made that pledge when King Raynor asked it of me. I made that promise. He hangs his head low, his muzzle almost buried in the fluff of his neck. Lyre, I love you. For most of my life, I've never even known for sure what love was, but now that it has ripped into my soul, I can feel it. And I know that you love me too, and as you've told me before, I've made a great impact on your life, but if the worst should happen, don't let your loyalty to me change you down as well. Don't. Because if you're loyal to me, you'll only be joining me in the grave. Please don't. But if you love me, you'll let me go. Winter. Even if it means tarnishing my own name more than I already have. I will stop at nothing to prove your innocence. I can see the pain in his eyes, and I know this is a hard topic for him. But it needed to be brought up. I know you will. It's in your nature. He takes his arm to his face and wipes the tears from his eyes. As he does that, he bends down and wipes the tears from my eyes with his paws. The wet pads gently brush against my eyelids, and I cradle my face in his paw, his warmth comforting. We stand there for a few minutes, the air heavy with the weight of all that's happening. One of the castle guards approaches us, their green cloak swishing with their tail. The other guard walks through the door to the other side. A commotion can be heard as he slips through. Sir Reed now takes me from his embrace and turns to them. Yes, they are ready for the accused to be brought out soon. He glances at me with his cat-like eyes. Lately, everyone either avoids looking at me or can't take their eyes off of me. He turns to me, a confident look covering his obvious worry. Are you ready? Does it matter? Let's outside. I guess not. Now takes my hand and we walk to the door at the end of the hall. When the door opens, walk through and you should find your place before the throne. You make it to the door and stand in front of it. Lyre leans against the wall, resting the side of his head up against one of the bricks. I stand across from the door, staring through the crack in the door. You hear the faintest noise of chatter coming from the other side. My skin is crawling and it begins to itch. I start to feel hot and the taste of my own spit begins to become more noticeable. Reaching behind my head, the chains rigging together and resting on my chest, I pull my hair out of my face. Lyre continues to rest against the wall, silent and calm. He's most likely thinking, so I decided to leave him to it, as I don't want to disturb his thoughts at a time like this. Simply concentrating as well. I close my eyes and try once again to trigger a vision of that night. Nothing happens. I open them again and my body shivers slightly. For some reason, I felt as if several people were all watching me. There was something else though, a comforting hand on my shoulder. The feeling goes away and I wonder if I imagined it. With the ways things have been going lately, I doubt it. I brushed it off and instead tried to have a different vision. Something easier just to make sure I didn't lose the ability altogether. That familiar experience of losing all the feeling around me only for it to come back overtakes me once again. My feet feel as if they hit the ground very hard, sending a shock through my body. The ground, however, is soft. Whoever this is, they're looking down at the ground, leaning against something hard. It's most likely a tree. I can see the spots of light being cast between the leaves and onto the ground beneath their feet. Those are Lyre's feet. I know for sure that they're his. Their fur is the same color and everything. As I realize this, I start to notice everything else, the fluff around his neck and the swaying tail above his lower back. Only a few seconds into the vision, I hear a soft voice from behind me. You really do it? Of course. You promise? Richter. Lyre slightly shaking me by the shoulders as I come out of the vision. He has his helmet on, his ears standing tall. Come on, we have to go. I look ahead and see that the door has been opened, a castle guard standing on the other side. He takes my hand and leads me through the door, the light from the throne room blinding at first. We enter the doorway and find ourselves in the back of the hall near the windows. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of people in the hall. They are all backed up against the large windows and pillars, standing in sectioned crowds. I've never actually seen this many people in the throne room before. They all chat amongst themselves, their voices bouncing off of the walls, forming a cacophony of nonsense. Just as I was starting to get used to the noise and presence of everyone in the room, they very suddenly quiet down. Just like that, everyone's eyes are on me. It's a horrible feeling. I'm reminded of that night once again. Every person in the ballroom standing around and staring at Lyre and I. It's happening again. I even start to feel the anger that took over during that awful moment, but I try to suppress it. Lyre lets go of my hand and instead holds onto the chains of the shackles, gently leading me to the center of the throne room. I try to stare at the ground as we pass everyone, head down in order to avoid drawing any more attention. I can't help but peek around out of the corners of my eyes. The left room of the throne room is lined with some chairs. There are 9 chairs in total, but only 7 people are seated in the row. I recognize a few of them from the solstice. 2 owls, tall and gray, their faces judgmental and stern. The male owl is clad in crimson fabrics, and the female one wears a teal dress. I also recognize the vixen sitting next to them, a seafoam green dress embroidered with flowers and vines. Her smile from that night is gone, replaced with a neutral expression. There are some new faces, though. At least people I've never noticed before. The one out of them all that catches my eyes is a large bear. He looks to be almost as big as Bjorn, so big that his chair has considerable space between the chairs on either side of them, to give the people sitting in those chairs room to sit. Not only is he as big as Bjorn, but he looks like him too. Aside from the fact that his fur is black, on his left sits an elk. His antlers branch out, taking up a wide amount of space above his head. From the prongs of his antlers hang four metallic leaves, each one a different color. He looks to be very aged, but sits calm and steady like an old tree. Next to him is what looks like a stoat. His clothes are flashy green, honeyed golden ribbons draping down the sleeves and lining his vest. I recognize the crest on his cape, the four-leaf clover being pierced by an arrow. I saw banners flying on the walls of Braden's Vale when I passed through there on my way to Lyre. They have a good relation with Aaron, if my memory serves me right. Finally, at the very end of the row, a chair is closer to the throne. I see Liz. She sits in the chair, her hands placed in her lap with one leg crossed over the other. Unlike everyone else, she's the only one not looking at me. She seems to actually be avoiding eye contact altogether. That is until she looks up and her eyes meet mine. I can't exactly understand the expression on her face, what it means, but she's clearly a bit uncomfortable. Maybe it's my appearance, or it's the fact that the day is finally here. Either way, I doubt she's here because she wants to be. Next to those chairs is a small table. I can't tell from here, but it looks like there's some evidence on it. On the other side of the throne room, there's another cluster of chairs and a few people sitting in them. Kadas is among them, his green clothing shining vibrantly in the light, making him stand out like a sore thumb. It helps because I had almost forgotten what he looked like. The cat looks at me with a curious and almost concerned expression. Staggering the steps leading up to the throne are 7 warrior guards, fingers among them, his helmet on and facing forward, posture straight and shoulders back. There's 2 empty spots among the guards, which I assume are meant for Bjorn and Liao. Liao continues to lead me to the bottom of the steps, making sure not to tug on the shackles. I'm also helping by keeping up with him. It's dead quiet in the throne room now, aside from our footsteps. I expected to hear people whispering in the crowd, but nobody's uttering a word. I look up at the throne, the large wooden mask basking in the light from the windows. On the left of the throne stands Lyre. I haven't seen him in a long time, but he looks the same as he did the last time I saw him. After Liao and I come to a stop at the bottom of the steps, Lyre notices me looking at him. He looks away, but it doesn't matter as my eyes are drawn to these 2 centerpieces of the room. There he sits, a crowned king of Lyre. The throne looks small compared to him, as he sits perfectly straight in the seat, arms resting at either side. Idris doesn't take his amber eyes off of me for a moment as he leans forward in his throne, looking down on me with displeasure. It's almost like he's looking right through me into my very soul. On his right stands a figure wearing a green cloak. Their robe is priestly and their arms are brought together within their sleeves. I've never actually seen them before. They take a few steps down the stairs and stand behind the guards before raising their paws into the air. O powerful Tigran, we pray that you guide the members of this trial towards the truth. I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty sure I see Idris roll his eyes. Guide our king towards true justice, and may his judgment be swift and true. For he who sits the throne of Lyre shall be righteous and protect all from the wicked. Even given my situation, I can't help but laugh at the idea that Tigran might not even be able to hear this person. Angel sits up and I feel his gaze pierce through me once more. Lord Winter of Erin now still stands by my side, looking forward, his paw grasping the chains to my shackles slightly. Yes, the word comes out a bit raspy, so I clear my throat. He was his hand on the arm of his seat before continuing. He had been accused of murdering King Raynor Ozian on the night of the winter solstice. Do you deny it? Yes. Very well. Let's proceed then. As king, I will be judging this trial. The rules are very simple. He leans back in his seat, relaxing his voice. You will speak only when spoken to, or when you have been permitted to speak without permission. Do you understand this? Of course. Good. Along with my judgment, there is a jury of lords and ladies from all across Lyre's territory. The figure gestures to the nobility sitting off to my left. Lord Oscar Grimdale, Lord of Grimwalk. The Lord's bear stands from his seat, bowing to Aegis. The chainmail on his body clings together with every movement he makes. Lord Oliver Oswell, Lord of North Osrin. The first owl stands, bowing to Aegis. As he balances, he extends his wings behind his body, fluttering decayed draped over his shoulders, along with his sister, Lady Olivia Oswell, Lady of South Oswin. The second one stands with him, performing a curtsy before they both take their seats in unison. Lord John Gillen, Lord of Gilmore, and protector of the Gilmorian woods. The elk stands from his seat, propping himself up on a cane, nodding to Aegis with a stern look. The leaves on his antlers shake as he does this. Lady Tyrell Rihanna, Lady of Aenor. The vixen stands from her seat and curtsies, though it's not as elegant as she looks. She sits back down just as the elk steadily manages to place himself back into his own seat. Lord William Braden of Braden's Vow. The small stoat stands from his seat, proudly bowing before jumping back into his chair. The furs are scuffed against the floor as he does it. Lastly, War Minister Elizabeth Renee of Rosewind. Liz leaves her seat and climbs the steps, taking her place on the right of Aegis' throne. As the current king's advisor, she will formally be at his side during his trial. She gives a slight bow in his direction before turning to face the front. The hooded figure takes his time walking back down the steps as he takes a seat a few chairs down from Gadad's. Thank you for the introductions. The trial will now begin. On cue, all the royal guards stamp their feet, including Leon. Surely I'll read. Leon steps forward and gets on one knee, lowering his head. His tail is tucked between his legs, almost completely limp. My king, you may remove your helmet. Leon stands back up and slides the helmet from his head. I can hear a few people make noises of discomfort in the crowds off to the side. Aegis' expression doesn't seem to budge. Do you swear to tell the truth, not only as a citizen of Lyre, but as the captain of the Royal Guard? I do. Very well. As an individual who made the arrest of Lord Britter, you may describe your account on the evening and what happened to the best of your ability, as you wish. Now moves to the center, standing in front of me. He beckons to the people sitting off to the sides. So I gotta stop right here now. So we'll continue with chapter 11 next time. And so the trial has begun, And Lyre will be the first to give his testimony. And then we'll hear the testimony of the other people there, the lords and ladies, as well as the war minister, Elizabeth. So how this trial is going to end. Hopefully it ends with Winter being found not guilty. But again, it could go the other way. And it's like Tigran is losing connection with Winter. I think he's going to try to do something about this. Hopefully, whatever he does, it will create an outcome that benefits Winter's favor. Hopefully. So we'll continue with chapter 11 next time. Thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.